Welcome to Conscious I, living in authentic connection and harmony with self, others, and the world, featuring Ravi and Savitri.
And Satnam, good evening, Savitri.
Good evening. Namaste, Ravi. And it's evening for
Satnam.
us.
It
Yes.
is. It's an unusual day for us to be recording, but it will be posting this as usual on Saturdays. So that's, we ebb and flow and do pivot and twist and turn with the tides as they say. I don't know who says that, but that's what we've been doing, I think.
Well, it describes how we've been operating in our ways together with the podcast, and also, it's been an interesting shift for us. I want to share a little bit with the viewers and listeners that we've gone through almost a year. We're at 50 plus episodes, so we've made it from the actual count. But the date will be the end of August, would be the date year.
Right,
And
because we had a couple bonus episodes in there and whatnot.
yeah. And when we think about how we started and how we envisioned the way the podcasts would show up and how we would be involved in the topics that we chose, we did quite a few different things. I mean, we got a little teachy preachy, we got a little presentation-y, and then we got more dialogue based, and then we found ourselves coming into a lot of background information just to be able to both be able to share. And now we've come into another framework. So if anyone is noticing how we are ebbing and flowing and we are evolving, and have any comments about episodes that you really appreciated or ones that you would like us to pick up those formats and do a little more of them. I think we'll be doing some series again, right? Were you thinking about that?
I would love to do another series. I thought that was great. I had a lot of fun with it.
So did I. Yeah, I really did. So yeah, so here we are this evening.
And you wrapped up our series in our last episode. Our series focused on resilience. What was our keyword?
Sacred evolution.
Resilience as sacred evolution. And we had 4 great topics related to resilience as sacred evolution. So yeah, go back and listen to those if you haven't heard
Yeah.
those.
And
Um,
we're going to have a guest, actually 2 guests. We had talked about this a couple episodes ago. We got them booked for next weekend, and they're going to carry that resilience topic along a bit for us, bringing in their expertise. They have a podcast, Grief, Humor, and Grace, or Grace, Humor, and Grief. I'm not sure. I'm never sure what the sequence is in their title, but those 3 concepts in resilience will pick up where we left off and take it into another territory. Yeah.
and I feel like today's topic also plays into resilience because it's about building rituals to sustain us in everyday life. And life doesn't change typically for us with one big decision or one big happening. I know it kind of feels like it in today's environment, where the news and we're surrounded by information that is inflated and it sounds really big and impactful in the moment, but really if you trace that back to the decisions we've made as a collective over a very long period of time, there's a lot more that plays into it. And in our own personal lives, our lives are changed, not usually, I mean, of course, yes, there will be a moment where maybe perhaps one big happening, one decision leads to an outcome that is remarkable and impactful and may change your life. But really, if you go back and look at it, it's the decisions that we're making day by day that lead up to that. So it is really, life is shaped by the actions and the thoughts that we return to day after day. And so that's what about today is how rituals help us remember who we are and help us shape the life that we want to create. Rituals. One distinction I wanted to point out here is that we're talking about rituals which are different than routines and checklists, because there's a difference there.
I was going to ask, are we going to get into routines, or you just answered the question before I could even ask it?
So I think, routines are things that we do day to day. They help us get things done. Sometimes they're very rote. Sometimes, how many times have you done your morning routine and you're maybe you're looking for your coffee cup or your glasses and it's like they're in your hand? Because those are things, they're routine. They're things that we do day by day to help us get through the day, help us get by, help us be efficient, whatever it is that we may be engaging in that routine. We brush our teeth every day. That's routine. Mm-hmm. And that helps us, stay healthy and prevents people from, moving away from us when we speak to them. But... Right. But it's not necessarily a ritual.
But there are some times, I'm just thinking about self-care, where the routine may be a ritual.
Like
of
course,
a lovely bath with oil.
Definitely getting there. There. Just want to point out that the things that we're doing, we do have our routines, which we do day by day, and then we can also have ritual that we do regularly. I think the difference is of course, obviously, is the intention that we put into it. We live in a culture that celebrates intensity. It kind of looks at dramatic transformations and overnight successes and these grand gestures as the major, turning points in life. But most of our lives are not lived in those moments, but in the space between. And, it's those ordinary moments in the morning, or the quiet evenings that we make those small decisions over time that really, and they can seem insignificant, but they, over time, the aggregate of committing to those makes the big difference. So the question isn't, what's going to change my life, but what am I practicing every day? Because whether or not we're practicing something with the greatest intention, we are putting our intention maybe somewhere subconsciously or unconsciously. So are we practicing anxiety or peace in our day-to-day life, in our routines? Are we practicing scarcity or gratitude? Are we practicing presence or distraction? I get really called out on that one because my ADHD brain is so easily distracted, and it's not for me. It's not that I don't have the time. It's that I'm not taking the time. But anyway, I'm calling myself out there.
Yeah,
and are we practicing?
Focus is not one of your favorite words.
Yeah, and I'm being called to task on it in my Saturn return to keep coming back to, bringing focus back into focus. How ironic is that? Is that circular logic? Can we argue against that? No, it's really, I have to. There are certain things that are repetitively coming up for me, and I'm needing to focus on them. But it is the practices that we repeat that eventually make us or shape us into the person that we become. I think rituals help shape our identity. It's not that our habits necessarily flow from who we are, I think sometimes we reverse that. I do this because I'm this. When really, if you would shift that narrative and say, I'm going to do this, it has the tendency to shape our identity, right?
Yeah,
Does that make
it's like the
sense?
difference between being and doing, it sounds like what you're describing. So, and what you expect for the result. If I do this, I might appear like this or become that, rather than step back and just be it and let it kind of permeate and do what it does in an identity way. Very, very interesting way. And you feel that about rituals, and that's
What
what you're getting.
and being to, at least from my experience, embodied. So being is embodiment,
Hmm.
right? To me, there are so many lessons in life that I knew cognitively. I can say cognitively, um, I can wake up and do affirmations, for example. I trust myself, but
Hmm.
but it takes over time, maybe creating the intention and ritual around that, believing that, and infusing that with emotion and intention, and not just saying it and not feeling it, or doing a practice around it that helps transition that knowing from a cognitive, like, oh yeah, I know that, but I don't really believe it and feel it in my core, into that I believe it and feel it in my core.
And last episode, talking about burnout, mantra was something that came up, and affirmations are a form of mantra. And there were a couple examples given in that episode. I think one of them might have been, I am safe, or I am.
Right, right. And I think the things we repeatedly do slowly tell our minds and our hearts who we are. But again, adding that intention and bringing yourself into a place where you embody the feeling at the same time is really crucial to the effectiveness of ritual.
Mhm.
Rituals have, just like practice. I tell folks, right, as a teacher, as a Kundalini yoga teacher, all the time, it doesn't matter if you believe that alternate nostril breath will calm your nerves. That doesn't matter. If you practice it, it will calm your nerves.
Right.
It activates, it balances the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous systems. That's
Mhm.
just what it does. It's a tool. It's a technology.
Mhm.
But I truly believe, and I believe that the lineage of Kundalini yoga supports that when we put intention behind our practice, we get much more out of it. So I can sit there and, do alternate nostril breath and just kind of do it to get it done. But if I really have intention to inhale calm and exhale the pressures of the day or whatever, exhale
Mhm.
any thoughts that come in, that really transforms my practice. And that's why part of my practice, when I'm doing a consistent routine or ritual practice, uh, it's a constant, it's a coming back to that. You do the, if you're doing a practice, it's something that you do regularly, you do it every day. Not every day will be as impactful as all days. Some days you're struggling to get through, some days you're just sitting down and going through the motions. But the intention, but you keep doing it, and there is a day maybe where you sit down and you're really in that moment, and because you are in the practice, the intention and the emotion of that ritual really enhance and impact the outcome of it, that the energetic impact of that ritual,
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Yeah, because you're right. I think what you said about alternate nostril breathing, nadi shodhana, and whether you actually believe it or not, it's similar to coming into any somatic, hatha yoga, kundalini, other lineage yogas, coming into those practices. You hear all the time another cliche, well, let's say an adage, uh, yoga helps you meet yourself where you are. Well, yes, and uh, what are we meeting and what are we intending at the time that we meet that? Are we going to resist and retreat? Do we observe and detach? Can we get engaged and embodied? And can we draw the breath and the body and the soul into unity? And it's so beautiful that you talk about practice as a ritual, because using the word practice, I think that beautiful concept of ritual, which gives it that sacred quality, that intensity that you were describing, some of that gets lost when we just talk about it as practice. And maybe that's why a lot of times people revert to practice as just being something they do with their bodies. And
Yeah.
they've lost that sacred inner experience that you described.
And it is that it's a practice. I think ritual is a practice of self-awareness. And not every time, so it's kind of like they're intertwined. They support each other, but they aren't each other. They aren't the same thing, but they very much support each other. I really, when I was thinking about this topic, my memory took me back to the Lutheran Church. I was raised in a conservative, it was called Apostolic Christian Church. I know I've talked about it before. I don't know how many people are that familiar with that. What do you call it? It's a sect, branch of Christianity.
I think it's
Thank you. The denomination of Christianity. But it's very, it's I suppose now I'm literally, this thought is just forming, this awareness is just forming as I'm saying it. So it's kind of, I'm like, oh, as I'm saying it, I'm realizing it. I guess I never looked at it as ritual, but their ritual is, we come into a service, a Sunday service, and it starts with, now, gosh, it's been so long since I bet I'm not going to know the order of things. We start with singing, and then there's prayer, and then the minister speaks, and then there's singing, and then prayer, let's say it just goes like that. But it's very plain, we have hymn books, but there are no, I guess, orders of service. I remember when I was in college and I had to do my final on I went to a private Christian college, by the way. And for my religion class, our final was to draw like a Lutheran church setup up front. Of course, now I was never paying attention in class. I had no idea what belonged in a Lutheran church setup or whatever it was, or Methodist or anything, because our church didn't have any setup at the front. There was no ritual in that way. I did get an A because I left my paper blank and I said that our Jesus, Lord Savior, was born in a manger, and if that was good enough for our Savior, then you don't need any of these things around you to worship. And
so you didn't have in your church a lot of accoutrements or
liturgical service.
Okay.
So in contrast of that, going to my mother's, side of the family, which is Lutheran, and going to those services, especially around the holidays, I was always so intrigued and comforted by the liturgy of the services. The reading from the pulpit and the response and the lighting of candles and, the taking of communion that was done more regularly there. All of those things I was intrigued by. And my heart just always was like, oh, saying these words, I felt so, I felt filled with emotion because of the warmth of the time. We were usually attending around the holidays anyway. But I realized I would look around me, and it really struck me, people are just kind of going through the motions and saying the words. And it was just kind of very rote. And, the Lord be with you and also with you, and it was just like, I kind of was like, that made, it really gave me a sense of how important ritual is, but how meaningless it can become if it becomes just that rote practice, or if it becomes performance. So the question is, what is that difference between performance and presence, right?
Yeah.
We do the things, right? We attend the services, we buy the journals, we get the candles, we buy the meditation cushions and the planners, and then that ritual just becomes another item on our to-do list, or a standard to meet, or we go to the service religiously because we should, and we maybe, and there, I feel like, again, it kind of is that relation to practice, where ritual of any kind gives us that sense of repetition and control. It soothes the nervous system.
Well, it's familiar. Yeah, it's familiar.
Yes, right. There are the positive psychological, which lead to physical effects, of ritual. But again, is the intention there, and is the feeling there, and how do we capture that so that ritual doesn't become another standard that we are just trying to meet, or another item to check off our to-do list? And how do we then, that doesn't mean we give up practice, but how do we keep that ritual alive? It's about returning, and it's about returning to ourselves. Ironically, like you said, meet that cliche, that adage, meeting yourself where you are. And realizing that maybe, if I don't do that, and this is something I've been coming to more recently in the past year or two in my practice, is giving myself grace to do something different, giving myself permission to do a mobility routine instead of a specific Kundalini Kriya, because that's what's going to feel best in my body. That doesn't mean that, my practice will fail me, or, that my ritual will fail me because I don't do it. It will welcome me back into it.
Yeah.
When I'm, go back to that practice with intention, but also taking time to recognize that I may need to do something else. I think
what you say, I think, is so important, in that we can get stuck in the tapas, in the routine becomes discipline that becomes ineffective, because you're trying to check off the box. I did that today, or this is my 230th practice in a row. I mean, I don't count, but maybe some people do. And it becomes something other than what it is. And taking a little time off, a day, a week. In some cases, I know there were a couple of years where I shifted my practices into something that was completely different, more meditative than, embodiment type practices. And when I came back to the asanas, it was as if they were there all along, growing along with me. It's just that I had to jump out for a while, because I was getting into that mode of being stale and feeling like, okay, I've got to check that off today before I'm really done, And then if I didn't practice for a day or two, I'm like, oh no, what did I do? I can't take that back. And it just became a real mind thing for me. So I love that you're bringing that up because ritual can be done in a shallow way, if that's the kind of day that we're having, because we do a lot of things that way, our daily things. We may drive in a more shallow way, and other days we may be very observant and enjoying what's going on as we drive around and notice the scenery. So it has a lot to do with where we are right now and tomorrow and the next day and last week and whenever. And, of course, I have to say the moon cycles bring a lot of that to us too. So uh, knowing that, but that's a ritual all in itself, that whole concept of following the moon every day and the planets. Uh, so how did you continue to evolve? You said a couple years ago things started to really become um, a little more focused, a little more intense. How did you put it? I don't remember your words.
No,
Your
I think a
question.
couple of years ago, I gave myself the grace to
Grace, that's what it was.
maybe branch out and do things a little differently, not as rigidly as I was doing them before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there is power in grace over perfection when it comes to our both our practice
Mm-hmm.
and to, our engaging in sacred ritual, because that it welcomes you back. It welcomes you back regardless of how perfectly you do it or how often you do it. So I think we can get locked into every moon cycle I have to do this and I have to put my moon water out or I won't be blessed, or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, whatever our, if I need to wake up and journal, or I need to journal every day and do this, and there is value and there is a time and place, for 40-day practice or journaling. But sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to check in with yourself and go, is this becoming a to do for me? And can I give myself grace to perhaps take a break, or do maybe there's something else where that if it really inspires that frequency change, that shift, that internal shift, where I'm feeling differently, maybe there's something that gives me more of that shift. So it's,
Yeah. I think what you're talking about is something else that we talk a lot about in practices in yoga, in our sacred rituals that we do. We talk about taking the yoga off the mat. And that when we're on the mat, we're practicing the intensity, we're practicing the inner work, we're practicing meeting ourselves where we come, and all those things that we talk about that could maybe happen or not, and to what degree it's very changeable. Coming off the mat doesn't mean you close the door and you're done with the practice. Some days it wants to come along, and those are the best days that I have, is when I've done my morning practice and I just want to remain in that space, continue to do things, take care of the dogs, go out, do the things that I do in the world and things at home, but try to maintain that integrity of space that practice gave me that day. So I think that's part of grace too, is being able to say, okay, you know, I'm going to take it with, and maybe tomorrow I don't need to do everything I did in practice that I did today because I'm still carrying it along. And I use it to infuse that unity with life back into me. And the whole practice then becomes a lifelong ritual. It's part of living. So that sounds very high idealistic, but there are moments when it shows up. It's the
well, I think what you're saying, it is, I say, I say that we do that. It's okay to give yourself grace. It's okay to break from that routine or that ritual. And I believe it is. And on the flip side of that, because I believe in paradox as all ultimate reality, I think it's important too that to realize that we to remember to, again, it's that self-awareness, meeting ourselves where we are, and really putting our intention and focus into is into the sacredness of that ritual to bring back that feeling, right? I mean, the sun rises every day and we forget to express our gratitude. The seasons turn and provide warmth, and each season provides something different, a period of rest, a period of growth, a period of harvest, whatever. And we forget to express our gratitude and see the sacredness in each moment. We forget to recognize, and honor the sacredness of the tides moving in and out, and the breaths that move in and out of our bodies in rhythm. So the ritual helps us remember the sacred, the sacredness in small moments. Whatever it is that feels sacred to you, for remembering why we're here.
And what you've just described beautifully is sacred evolution, where we give ourselves grace to come out of a formula or come out of a static routine, which is a static ritual maybe, and allow it to expand or contract based on the evolution that's occurring. Because sometimes I think we get stuck. We get stuck in certain patterns. It felt good. I'm going to do that again until it feels good, until it feels good again. And that practice repetitiously then holds us in a place that sometimes stagnates. And we need to be able to, move out of that in different ways, either add or take away, or, like you mentioned, shift perspectives and do something a little different.
Because I think it's important to be self-aware and recognize, because we're performing rituals, whether they're having a positive or negative effect. And you hear this subconscious mantra come out of, everybody else is better off, than I am, and I don't have enough, and I can't do this because I don't have that, and I can't have this. It's a very, it's a victim spiral. Whereas, there where could that shift occur? So I perhaps am calling myself out for having a tendency to feel a little bit of judgment, but I recognize that also is a mirror for me, and all of those ways where I'm ritualizing those, whether it's through mantra or through actions, repetitive actions that perhaps I am doing with or without that intention behind it. But again, our intentions strengthen the impact or the outcome, but it is the repetition of our thoughts and our thought and behavior patterns that are creating the receipt of the ultimate reality that we're experiencing.
And I think it's a balance between the desire, and seeking the desire, desiring to desire, and the recognition that moksha is something that returns and arrives. And in between we have, our dharma and artha circumstances that show up as well, that we're doing while we're here on earth. But I think what you described was that whole grass is greener thing that a lot of people get into. And that's really a bit of a imbalance in the Purusharthas, where we've got an imbalance with Kama. Kama has become the main point of focus. And even if it's desiring moksha or liberation, or desiring to work in a different way, or desiring the dharma to show up a different way, it's still based in Kama. And so
Yes.
there's
Yeah, so it's just interesting. I think it's something that, to be aware of, that we are in practice. We've said it before, but we are in practice and ritual, whether we're aware of it or not.
mm-hmm.
And I think especially in today's culture, our attention it's for sale. It's constantly, we are the commodity that,
We are
that
in
is
so many
being
ways. Yeah.
tapped. Our
Mm-hmm.
focus is fragmented. Our nervous systems are overstimulated. Our worth is measured by productivity. So ritual is that act of quiet resistance.
Mm-hmm.
We can, there's so many ways to do it. Sitting in silence for just a few minutes, going out and experiencing something without taking a picture. Just kind of stepping back, or sitting in practice without having to document it or post about it.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love that you said that, because that's been something throughout my life. I've taken very few pictures of things that I've experienced, places that I've gone, and activities with my children and family and so forth, because I was always busy just doing it and being in it. Um,
Right.
but I do have a lot, because the memory is still solid in there and brings things back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I've been really attempting to, when I am, especially I was taking a small trip recently, and I really wanted to be intentional about keeping my phone and, the
Hmm.
pictures minimal, and really focusing on just building the memories.
Hmm.
A
How did it
little,
go for you when you did that? Because what I'm thinking of is half of my life was without a cell phone. And so, that whole process that you just described was very firmly grounded. Maybe that's why I don't take as many pictures as many people do. And I enjoy their pictures, don't get me wrong. I love it.
I've noticed, I ask myself, what am I doing with these photos? They're taking up space. And, I do like getting memories, and, oh, this pops up and I see it, but can I be more intentional about that? Can I be more intentional if I'm going to, for example, take pictures on a trip? Am I doing that intentionally? Can I come back and create an album, and maybe have a purpose for those,
Right.
instead of just missing the moments and being distracted and not present in the moment. I just think it's ritual is, transfer, we do it, I think, to, in part, to evolve and transform ourselves and our circumstances. I think sometimes too, the intention of the ritual, are we intending to change our outside circumstances, or are we really focused on, maybe having that internal shift? And again, it's all is one, as above so below. I think all of it has some influence and impact, but obviously, when we set goals for ourselves, they're more impactful than setting goals for others.
Hmm.
So, um, there is, we can,
Well,
that's kind of probably another topic for another day.
yeah, I just want to interject real quickly that this is our eclipse month coming up here.
I
And
know.
on the 12th, in
Yeah.
this is going to be Saturday the 8th, we'll be putting this out, but on the 12th, we have the solar eclipse. And then on the 28th, 29th, because it's going to happen in the cusp across the United States, um, we'll have a lunar eclipse. So we'll get a little bit more information about that after the fact, but the solar eclipse mainly will be seen elsewhere, not so much here in the United States. Although we'll still feel the energies, it'll still be there, and there'll be people doing the solar eclipse rituals.
Yeah. Yeah,
Speaking of
it's a
that,
powerful time. It's a
it is.
powerful time. Both practice and ritual are incredibly powerful. I think of practice as like when you practice consistently. I think of it as like you're creating space. You're creating energetic space. It's almost like a helipad, a frequency helipad, right? So I really my dedicated yoga space, my practice room, there's a whole different energetic, frequency. I feel like that frequency extends to my house, but it's like you create a landing space. Your altar is a landing space, your ritual space, your practice space. You're creating almost, I imagine it like, I don't know, I guess a helipad, helicopter, like something, for your divine to portal in and be present, and your ritual, so your practice, that you're creating that space. When we do ritual, we're turning on the light, like we're turning on the landing pad light, and we're saying, it's right here. We're putting that intention behind it and the frequency behind it, and we're guiding that into that space. I feel like they go hand in hand.
They do. And I think that's what I was talking about by taking, that adage of taking yoga off the mat, but
Right.
bringing it along and letting it maintain. At least I'm able to hold it some days. And some days it's longer than others, I'll have to say. But yeah, that I think is what you're saying, is it comes in, so what do we do with it? Are we going to just, okay, practice is over, and we'll send it back? No, we want to hold on to that and become unified with the energies and everything in our life, and let that radiate and expand and share it with others in what other things that we do during the day. So it becomes, life becomes the ritual. Yeah.
Yes. So the questions I would like to leave our listeners with are: what are the rituals that are already shaping your life? And which ones nourish you, and which ones are quietly draining you? Is it time to maybe create a little bit of a shift? And what might change for you if you weren't so concerned about building the perfect life, instead focused on building those grounding rhythms, those ones that bring you back to yourself? And what is one small ritual that you could begin that your future self would thank you for?
Yeah. We'll look at the comments and see. And we're going to have a comment review pretty soon, too.
Yeah,
So
we are.
get on that, everybody. Put your comments in, because we'll be coming back within the next week or so with some responses to your comments. Help us build that
So,
podcast.
yeah, and share, this with someone you may feel you could maybe use some encouragement and creating a little more rhythm, and, rushing a little less, and
Yeah.
finding ways to calm the nervous system and build ritual in their life to ground, to become present in the moment, to use the adage, which sounds cliche until you're experiencing it, but
That's
to meet
right.
yourself where you are every day,
Yeah.
daily. So that is that. Sat Nam.
Namaste.